The Hard Talk with Jakim Show.
The Hard Talk with Jakim Show.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of DIN Media Studios. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host or producers. Thank you and enjoy. Peace and blessings. This is Jakim from the Hard Talk with Jakim Show. Can't get enough of the Hard Talk with Jakim Show? You can email us at btom6164@gmail.com. That's bthomp6164@gmail.com. Peace. Peace and blessings, y'all. Yeah, this is your man, Jakim, for the Hard Talk with Jakim Show. Listen, we do have a person that's going to be a guest on tonight, Phil Gross. He's going to be on a little later, but before we get to that, I got to get to some legalese. I'll be right back with the Hard Talk with Jakim Show.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
The views expressed at or through this broadcast is those of the individual host and guest in their individual capacities only. The information provided on this broadcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all information, content, and material available on this broadcast are for general informational purposes only. All viewers should contact their attorney to obtain advice with respect to any and all legal matters.
All right, y'all. So we got that legalese out of the way. So it looks like our guest, Phil Gross, is having a little problem to get in. So we're going to keep on moving on. Now, we're going to keep on moving on with some important information for you. First, locally, Delaware. Delaware, it is now time, 2024, for the elections to start. It is time for you. You're going to see a lot of yard signs out there. You're going to see a lot of people on the campaign trail. You're going to hear a lot of garbage. That's right. I said it. You're going to hear a lot of garbage. I mean, I put a thing up this week, a meme about the wolf in a three-piece suit telling the sheep that if he's elected, he's going to become a vegan. And that's how it feels for a lot of our politicians. Doesn't really matter what party, what affiliation, doesn't really matter. It feels as though they'll tell you everything in order to get elected. But I'm going to tell you a couple of things tonight that's going to help you. First, we'll deal with Delaware. Maybe I'll get in a little bit of New Jersey and New York. Big shout outs to all the people that watch me in New York and New Jersey, especially on YouTube. You can find us at Delaware Info Now. That's Delaware Info Now on YouTube, or the other channel, the new channel, The Hard Talk with Jakim Show on YouTube. Now, I do have a couple of things I have to put out of the way. I said I was going to address the Angel Reese issue. So let me just give you this. If you don't know who Angel Reese is, she's a young lady that with the LSU Tigers, great basketball player. And the comments that she were getting on Twitter and on social media shows exactly to where America is. I am so tired of people blaming Donald Trump. I am so tired of them blaming Donald J. Trump for what is going on with the divisiveness in our country. Divisiveness in the country always was there. Yes. You know I ain't no fan of Donald J. Trump. Couldn't care less about that knucklehead. But let me just tell you this. Stop blaming Donald J. Trump for the divisiveness of this United States of America. Doesn't matter what state you in, all 50 states, including Guam and the United States Virgin Island, Puerto Rico. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you now, the same knuckleheads that are talking now were the same ones who supported George W. Bush, Bush 1, Ronald Reagan, and any other of the Republicans. It goes further back. Let me just say this. It goes further back than Barry Goldwater. I know a lot of y'all want to always talk about the Barry Goldwater. All you political science majors and people that think you're in the know, you love to talk about it back there. But it goes further back. Look like we got somebody on stage. So, excellent day. So listen, let me just finish this thought. The divisiveness in this country did not start with Donald J. Trump. No, it did not. It did not. It was always there. So stop blaming Donald J. Trump. He may be one of those catalysts of it. He may be one of the people that put it together, but the divisiveness is always there. And that's our political climate in Delaware. Looks like we've got our guest here. It looks like we got Mr. Phil Gross. Let me tell you something. And before I introduce him and bring him on, let me just give you this. I have seen Phil in Delaware here for many, many years. And one of the things that I love about Phil is Phil has got grit. And Phil is going to go in it. So as we get into it, let's welcome our guest tonight, Phil Gross. Big shout out to you, Phil. How you doing, brother?
Thank you. And you know what? My return comments to you are the same. I think we're brothers by different mothers.
There you go, man. There you go. So listen, I want you to tell our viewing audience, and remember, this is going to be rebroadcast on YouTube 24 hours from now on Delaware Info Now. You can always catch us on Delaware Info Now and also on the Hard Talk new channel that we have, the Hard Talk Show on YouTube. Give us what the trustee in Newcastle City am I correct? What does their job entail? Can you hear me?
An extremely long story short, because they started in 1701 is when William Penn surveyed the historic Newcastle area, which obviously kept bouncing back and forth between England, between different countries. But he was able to survey it and make it for the people in the area. Fast forward to now, the trustees manage this land for the benefactors, which are the residents of the city of Newcastle. Now, make sure that everyone... Yes.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, this is the important fact that everybody in, Buttonwood and out that way, you are a part of the city of Newcastle. And a lot of times the inner city people tend to make you feel disenfranchised, which makes you feel uninterested, not wanting to be a part of things, but you matter as much as any of them. And it's important, it's incumbent that you get involved, stay involved, and be a part of change and improvement.
Right. So listen, I'm going to get to, and thank you. I'm going to get to this point because I know the election is coming up soon, and I want you to give them the date. And I also want you to tell them that just because they can vote in Delaware elections doesn't mean that they can vote in this election and they can register on that day. Is that correct?
That is extremely correct. As a matter of fact, unless you are registered with the trustees for the election, it used to be, not today, used to be that you could not vote. Then they changed it where you could vote, but you had to register in advance. Now, all you need to do is bring photo ID, doesn't have to be a license. Number two, it's got to correspond with a piece of mail or your utility bill so that they can substantiate that you are a resident of the city of Newcastle, not just Delaware.
Right. So again, it's pretty simple. If you bring, if you've never voted in any of those elections in the city of Newcastle, all you have to do is bring a bill in, a utility bill, and have your ID, and they'll let you vote that day and they'll register that day. Now, I know we in Newcastle, in this area, and remember, I live in the planet of Dunleaf, not too far on the Route 9 corridor. So we have a lot of family and friends that live in Buttonwood, which is a predominantly a black neighborhood. And also we have Boothurst, and I think there's Jakim Square or Jakim Square, and all those those people, if you're watching, you are in the city of Newcastle, so you were able to vote. Now, when is election day again?
The election day is Saturday, April 13th at the Goodwill Fire Company on South Street.
In Old Newcastle. Right.
And funny you should mention it, exactly what you said, which had made me cognizant of the importance of people getting involved. When I first ran for city council 8 years ago, the first comment was, we've never seen anybody come out to our neighborhoods. And I always relay the story that our family owned Gross Lighting in Wilmington. So our roots were with the community, no matter what the makeup of the community was. That matters not, just like with family. You're either family or you're not family.
Right.
So everyone you just mentioned is part of the city of Newcastle family, and you matter.
Now, I thank you. Another good point. Now, when we discussed about putting you on the show tonight, I already had a theme going on. But, I wanted to really hone in on a couple of things. And I know you're running for trustee there and in Newcastle. I really wanted to hone on why so many of those things, because when I was the Democratic leader of the 16th RD, it also encapsulates parts of Newcastle City. And I know your position is non-party. You're actually nonpartisan. It's not Republican, not Democrat, and not Libertarian. You're just they run it that way. How hard has it been to get people to come out to vote for these particular elections in Newcastle City, as opposed to a regular election in the state of Delaware?
Well, again, you always seem to hone in on the right questions, so thank you. The issue with that is that I'd say 90% of the 600 or 700 people that come out and vote out of 5,000 tend to be the inside people that read just gossip. They don't know what's really going on. And having gone through candidate school with Drew and those guys in town, I always learned to have an exit poll. So after the first election, I had asked, what would have changed your vote? What matters to you? And you know what? Most people said, well, a drinking buddy, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor. I said, well, what about taxes? Do they mean anything? What about the police? What about how you feel about leaving your home? Does any of that matter? Traffic, overbuilding. And you know what? Most people are disconnected with all of that. Because, as you said, there's no party, no person to blame or to go after to say we need change. Here, people think, get a cat out of a tree. That's the big thing.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this, and I'm glad you went there, because there's some important information there. And I've been telling my viewers for years now. You watch the CNN and you watch the Fox or MSNBC, and they'll tell you it's the economy, it's the debt, and it's the real. But when it comes down to local politics, and when it comes to, in which all politics is local, Tip O'Neill said, when it comes down to that, it basically comes down, my friend says they like that person, so I'm gonna vote for him. It's that simple. It's not as complicated as the CNN, the Fox, and the MSNBC. I mean, they'll put the immigration up and all the other stuff, but when it comes down to your local things, like this election in Newcastle, it's just that if if they just saw you at the door doing canvassing or had a door knock, they probably would have voted for you. What do you say?
And that's why it's so important. And I love that slogan, get the vote out. Get the vote out. It's so important that you have a hand in democracy, whether it's local, whether it's community, national, civic associations. If you don't want to be left at the station, get on that train. Get on the train.
Right, and you're absolutely right. Now you are saying to me a couple of, I guess about a year and a half ago. It's been some time. How polarizing everything is in this world, and it's always been. And that was my point before we got into the discussion. The first thing you say, if somebody, how we handle people who disagree with us. A lot of times they disagree with us politically because they're backing somebody else politically. You know, first thing the first time I put a thing on with this promo, oh, I don't like that guy. You know why? Because, and then when you find and pull back the layers, is that they're backing the other candidate. So all I say to the people out there is just do your research. Don't be intellectually lazy. Do your own research and think for your own self. What do you say about that, brother?
All I gotta say is you're wiser, well beyond your 100 years of age.
No, thank you, man. Flattery will get you nowhere, man. Like the Princess Brides in the movie, it's inconceivable. What can we say? But I tell you, we got a couple of things that I want to, issues that I want to bring up. This is the Hard Talk with Jakim show, and we're going to be back with our special guest, Phil. We're going to have him get some water and stuff, and we're going to be right back with our special guest, Phil Gross, running for trustee in Newcastle. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of national. I'll be right back. Listen to this from Roland Martin, y'all. Check him out.
And so here's what I want to know. If all of these black organizations are supposedly representing black people, which black people? Because surely, folks will be blowing my phone up saying, can we get on to discuss? Can we get on to discuss our rallies? Can we come talk about our protests? Can we come on and talk about our campaigns? So what the hell are all these groups doing? And I'm going to expand this beyond black civil rights groups. I'm going to also challenge Divine Nine. Where are you on the 13 billion? I'm going to say Prince Hall Mason. Where are you on the 13 billion? Eastern Star, Links, Black Church, Black Clergy. Where are you on the 13 billion?
All right, y'all, just bring some context there. That was Roland Martin. You know him as a host and a guest on a lot of people's show. He has his own podcast. He was talking about $13 million that the Tennessee Board of Education and the Tennessee government found out that they were shortchanging HBCUs in those particular in states, especially in the South. Not only in Tennessee, but was other that they were shortchanging them and not funding them right. But that also brings up to the larger picture. When we have these election periods that these people come into the black churches and they speak for the black churches and they speak and they allow these pulpit preachers allow them to come in and speak, and they're only there for 5 minutes to try to get some votes. That's something that's got to stop, and I think we're going to stop this in this campaign, especially in Delaware. I was just at Velder's Potter thing, and believe me, the black churches in Wilmington, especially the IMAC churches, are not going for that anymore. They're not going for you to come into the church, talk that nonsense, and then we don't see you for the next 2 years. So again, we've got our, that's my commentary. Again, we got our guest, Phil Gross. He's running for trustee down in Newcastle City. Now, sometimes they call it Old Historic Newcastle. Is that correct? Yeah. What'd you say, Phil?
Well,
okay.
there's another. No, I was going to say that's another fine point that you brought up. It was called Newcastle. Problem is, the inner circle was so afraid of statistics. They hate statistics. They hate being tied into something other than their comfort level. So they went to the postmaster to try and change the zip code from Newcastle. And the postmaster, which I had a heads up on, I knew he wasn't going to fall for that. He says, well, we're not going to change it, but if you want to change the prefix name, go ahead. So our area is now noted as historic Newcastle, where Bolorama and everywhere else, which is no difference from us, is called Newcastle.
Right. So again, just to be clear, you're running for trustee for historic Newcastle.
Correct, which encompasses all the neighborhoods that you addressed.
Now, I got another question for you. Now, we're keeping it local this time. So if you're tuning out right now because I ain't doing national news, don't tune out because believe me, this local stuff is just as important over there with you. I've got a question. The question that I had, somebody gave it to me in an email, says, does the trustees have anything to do with where Staples and IHOP and Planet Hollywood, do they have anything on the Newcastle market? Do they have anything to do with that? And so what's your answer?
That is actually part of the trustees' land. So Richard Statt, who again is a good friend of our family, leases that whole plot of land. And he sublets it out to an IHOP, a Home Depot. So
right.
he took that whole plot of land and is basically renting it out on an individual basis. But
so the trustees don't have anything to do with it?
No, they are the people that are receiving rent for that whole plot. Penmart Shopping Center.
Gotcha.
Airbase Carpet Mart, and that strip where the Pep Boys was. They go all the way down there. That's their frontage. And Burger King right across. They actually had the airport plot, but the government took that. But they still have the Burger King and the car rental, truck rental.
All right. So what I'm getting that this is basically a layer cake. So there's one person or a couple of people that may lease it, and do they lease it to the trustees and the trustees make all the rules about it, or?
It's flip-flop. The trustees own it for the benefactors, which is all the residents of the city of Newcastle. And that's what people don't understand, which is why I appreciate the opportunity to explain it, is that the trustees don't really own it. They manage it for us. And that's why we run into this problem, and why I've been so insistent, like you said, I'm going to rattle cages. I'm going to rattle swords. I'm going to go nuts, because people have to understand they are doing it for the benefit of us. We are the benefactors.
Well, I tell you, man, I love your emails, and I love your get out the call when they're doing something crazy. I love the emails. And I've always thought that there's the budget, and I'm always I'm a numbers guy, man. And you know I love my numbers. The budget for Newcastle, for historic Newcastle, comes from the taxes that they got from the residents there, and I guess they get something from the state. But I think a lot of that probably would be coming from the leases of those like Penmart and all that. Are those going into the capital budget plan?
Well, the city of Newcastle benefits from taxes and all that. And when a company sells their their land, they get the proceeds from the profit. Trustees derive their revenue from the land leases, but
That's important.
but they shell out a lot of money.
I'm sure they do.
The fire company and the schools, they get scholarships. The only problem that I ever had recently are twofold. One, they decided to only have their meetings open to the public quarterly, not monthly.
Ooh. What are they hiding?
I just found it interesting that they would say, we're going to table this till next month. And I'm going, oh, I won't be at that meeting.
Wow. And that's so funny. In 2024, I have no government has the right, has the excuses anymore about accountability and transparency. Every government should have the ability for transparency. And you're telling me that Newcastle City only opens up their council meetings quarterly?
Nope. Before I screw you off and send you in a tailspin, the city of Newcastle does not do that. The trust can do that because they are theoretically or in reality a private management company.
Don't tell me now that we're talking about the trust, not the city. I got you. Now, again, and anybody who knows my show, I've talked about New York City MTA. I talked about the Delaware Bridge Authority. I really hate these quasi-private, public things like casinos. If you heard me talk about Delaware Park, you know that I hate these things, and that it's really private, but they get funding and all of this stuff, these quasi-public private entities. You're telling me the trustees is a quasi-public?
Correct. And I know one of your questions is going to be, Phil, I know you for who you are. How are you going to be able to adjust, but yet still keep your ideals, morals, and ethics true to yourself and be there for the people? Well, I gave the trustees my word, and I helped run Newcastle Matters, which is a community group. I told them that I will never lie about things, but when it comes to the trustees, if there is an oath that I must take, I'm going to have to abide by their rules. But I did make it plain to them that I will still be true to myself. And when it comes to my opinion, you're going to hear it tough, raw, and ready. Now, I'm going to...
And on the record.
Correct. And I might get outvoted 12-1 on 90% of the things, but I'm hoping to be the voice of reason.
Right. Well, and thank you. I appreciate that. Let me ask you, before we go on another break, let me ask you, how many people are on the council?
Well, remember, separate the word.
Not the council, the trustees.
Correct. Right. There is a board of 13.
Gotcha.
Which has an executive board of 4, basically to manage if there's some real major issues.
Gotcha.
They can rule it. But the main thing is, just because it's closed does not mean there's a window shade, and I am their window shade.
Thank you. And I'm glad you brought that before we go on our next break. So now the trustees have minutes. They have stuff just like any other board would have. And any of those minutes and stuff are really accessible to the public to view in a timely fashion. I don't mean 2 months ago, what happened?
What'd you say?
Is it
I'm
accessible?
kidding. I'm kidding. No, I heard you loud and clear.
Gotcha.
I just don't have a clear answer because I myself am forced to wait along with everybody else. And what makes it worse, our tabloid paper, and I call it a tabloid, I don't call it a newspaper.
Okay.
Our tabloid propaganda machine consistently bashes me. And when I tell the truth, they bash me. One of my opponents, and I've got the emails to prove it, so I'm not worried about, but in my letter of intent to run, I said one of my opponents who runs the Newcastle Partnership has decided to close the monthly meetings from the public. And she printed in this month's paper, which I'll provide you a copy because I don't think anybody should be buying it. She put that she notified me that that was a lie, and I chose to write it anyway. All this is propaganda for those that are inside, and I tell people, do not support that paper whatsoever. There's a thing that comes out called the I think it's called the Newcastle Digest or Historic Digest. It gets emailed out. Everybody Google it. But that is some articles, but he makes it a point to not have any kind of editorial slanting on what is factual.
Yeah, so I guess if that's the case, like most of our mass media, if that's the case, if you're not doing both sides, then you might as well don't call it journalism and just call it what it is. It's commentary. That's all it is. It's just straight up commentary. All right, y'all, we're going to be right back with our guest, Phil Gross, running for trustee in Newcastle City. I keep wanting to say Newcastle County, but it's Newcastle City. So we're going to be right back. Now, before we leave, I'm going to show you a video, and it's one of our Martin Luther King's last speech. Again, yesterday was the anniversary of Martin Luther King's death, April 4th, at the Lorraine Hotel, y'all. So I'm going to let you hear one speech, and we'll be right back. Now, let me go get some water.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over that. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
All right, y'all. That was the late great Martin Luther King Jr. That was a speech, part of a speech that was done the night before he was assassinated in Tennessee. So a big shout out to one of if you've never heard that speech before, you got to go get it. It's not just the mountaintop speech. There's other stuff there that he talks about. And again, we're back with our guest, Phil Gross, running for trustee in Newcastle City. Got it this time, Newcastle City. So again,
I was going to ask you real quick. I was so taken back by the first words that were queued up in your Martin Luther King speech. Be true. Be true to what you say. Be true to what you write, and be able to put your head down at night and say, I tried.
That's right.
And that's on my dad's tombstone. As crazy as it sounds, he insisted that he spent his life trying to make the world, his neighborhood, his house, his family a better place. And
that's commendable. That's fantastic. I love it. Listen, we on this last segment, man, we're just going to get to it. Remember, if you're watching this live, I've seen there was a couple of people that was on. If you're watching this live, remember, if you miss it, you can watch it on Facebook at the Hard Talk with Jakim show. You also can watch it 24 hours from now on YouTube at Delaware Info Now, or the new channel, the Hard Talk show on YouTube. I'm going to finish up with a couple of things. Now, I did see your yard signs, and I saw them everywhere, and I see them, and it's fantastic. And I know you're doing some door knocking this weekend. It is important and imperative that the people that's watching this, or if you live in Newcastle City, that you understand there is an election next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, that election is important because they manage monies. These are the policies that directly affect you. You know, one of the things I tell about on our show about the layer cake is that federal laws affect you. Yes, you're absolutely right. State laws affect you. And even your municipality laws, and they even affect you even more. All of them affect you, but those local laws and those local policies affect you. All right, so Phil, we're going to wrap it up here with you, and we're going to ask you to give all the good information, and this is your last pitch. You got 2 minutes to give them why they should vote for you.
Real quick, I want to read this, and I live by this.
Sure.
If you accept the call to leadership, you must be willing to be misunderstood, criticized, opposed, accused, and even rejected. You've got to be willing to do that, or you're not willing to make change.
That is 100%. Hold on for a second. Phil, before you make your last pitch, just listen, just watch this. Family, watch this.
Some people don't like what I do. That's just the way how it is. I have learned along this way. The more you shine, the more shadows you cast.
Listen, the more you shine, the more shadows you cast. It's just the way it is. That is the way life goes. And you got to be thick-skinned and ready for it and just move on. Look, my daddy used to say this, and my daddy still says it. He says, some will, some won't. So what? Next. And we'll leave it right there.
I was going to ask you, which one are you?
I'm all of those. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. Go on. So go ahead. Give us your last 2 minutes there, Phil. Tell us why they should vote for you.
I was going to say real quick, and don't break the law, but don't be afraid to be a part of change and the law. The police chief absolutely hates me. He point blank said, I'm not your big. I said, all you have to do is on your cars, put protect and serve, which it says everyone. Can you just add everyone to it? Make everyone matter. Don't go out of your way to say, oh, you matter, you matter. How about everyone should matter? And like I told him, I said, either you're right or you're wrong. You can't straddle the fence on stuff.
That is correct.
So 2 things.
Yeah.
One, please open your door to me when I come around to your neighborhoods. I'm going to have a lot of people. I even got probation and parole to allow people that want to do community service to make this part of their project so they can be a part of the future process. I tell people, if everybody can achieve everything, might take longer, might cost more, but you can be what you want to be if you're willing to focus on it. If you cannot make the 13th, Saturday the 13th, you can go up to the trustee office, and let me give this phone number because you need to call before to make sure. It's 302-322-2809 extension 1, and vote early if you cannot make the 13th. Make your vote count. I've got to win. We've got to show them that it's not just the chosen, but the people.
There you go. All right. You finished strong, man. I like that. You finished strong. Listen, I'm just going to piggyback on what you just said, Phil, and just tell everybody. Now, today I was on a bus. I was on a dark bus. I was on the 13, 15. Big shout out to all the people who talked to me on the 13 and the 15 bus today. I had a lot of conversations. Oh, forget about it. I think people just wanted to be out since we had so much rain. Let me just say this. If you are one of those that have formerly incarcerated and now you're out in the street and you don't know your voting status, it's pretty simple. Go vote. Let them tell you that you can't vote or you're not able to vote, or because right now in Delaware, I'm going to tell you this, in Delaware, and we're not talking about Newcastle City, but I guess that may apply or may not apply. In Delaware, it is so vague on people that were formerly incarcerated, what crime they had, whatever they think. Just go vote and let them tell you if you can or cannot. So remember this, for Newcastle City, for the trustees, is Saturday the 13th. Make sure y'all get out there and vote.
Jakim, one thing I wanted to say was, having been formerly incarcerated, I ran 3 times, and the 4th time, wouldn't you know, they wanted to put the brakes to it. They went to the Board of Elections and said, he's got to be disqualified. So they disqualified me from running, and they thought they could shut me up. They even tried getting a no contact order with the mayor so that I couldn't show up at meetings and talk. Well, you know what? Get all your ducks in a row and have proof. No proof, no go.
That's right.
And my email address, which I welcome.
Yeah, sure.
It's simple. phil4trustee@gmail.com. And the website is abetternewcastle.com. How simple is that?
That's real simple. betternewcastle.com. Go to the website. You can get information on there. If you feel like you want to donate or if you want to bring some time to help people, welcome any person that wanted to volunteer to do some stuff in the campaign. Listen, Phil.
I was going to say, if you notice, my email address and website don't say historic, a better historic Newcastle. Mine says a better Newcastle.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Everybody matters.
I like that. That's pretty simple, man. Listen, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Remember, this show is going to be on 24 hours from now on YouTube at Delaware Info Now. That's Delaware Info Now. That's the channel. Or you can go to The Hard Talk Show. That's our new channel. In fact, we only got about 5 subscribers on that one. We got a lot of subscribers on the Delaware Info, but the new one we haven't got. So we're going to be pushing it out. We've got a whole new campaign that we're going to be pushing out. So listen, I think we have 4 candidates that's going to come on in the next 4 weeks. We 4 people that are running for public office here in Delaware, but we also have 1 person that's going to be running in South Jersey. Big shout out to South Jersey, y'all, because you're right over the bridge from us, the Delaware Memorial Bridge. Big shout out. Y'all have important elections there too. And if you felt the earthquake today, if you did feel it in Delaware, you're one of the rare ones, because I know I didn't feel it. Did you feel it, Phil?
I thought it was you getting out of bed.
I forgot about it, man. Listen, y'all, this has been the Hard Talk with Jakim show. We're going to leave you now. I'm going to leave you. I've been leaving y'all the last couple of weeks with a little words from Toni Morrison. I'm going to leave you with the words of Toni Morrison. See you on the flip side, y'all. Hold on. Before we leave out of here, my man J. Joseph Taylor said, can he get on the show? He's running for, he just put a comment, he's running for in Wilmington. Yeah, Jay, you can get on the show. You know that, my brother.
And let him know, I work campaigns. If I believe in the guy, I'm there. If I've been a woman, I'm there. So don't be afraid to give a shout out.
All right, that's a connection, man. So definitely. All right, we're gonna leave you with the late great Toni Morrison, our beloved sister. Listen to some of her words. You're gonna love them. I'll see you again, Phil.
You believe in upward mobility.
Of course.
Right?
Absolutely.
Of course you do.
But I'm not going to give up one drop of melanin in order to get there. I'm not going to erase my race or my gender to get there. I want all of it. I deserve all of it, and we all do. I don't want to be blanded, bleached out in order to participate in this country and walk any hall of power or corridor that I want to. If I'm not good enough, if I'm not smart enough, then that's it. I'll take that hit.
Judge me by my deeds.
That's right.